This conference will now be recorded.
Hi all, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the day one session of the performance testing real-time project with JMeter. So yesterday we had the demo session in which we went through the course curriculum, right? And we also went through your queries. So, and then we have started the introduction to the different types of non-functional testing. So does anyone have any queries from yesterday's session? So no queries.
Hello.
So let's resume from yesterday. So I told you that there are different types of non-functional test types like performance testing, site reliability testing, security testing, browser compatibility testing, and then accessibility testing. So now let me share my screen. Hope my screen is visible to all of you. So these are the different testing types which we discussed yesterday, right? Now we will go to a common question. You all might be knowing this also, right? You might all be knowing this, but some people would be new to performance testing also, for example. And so the $1 million question is why performance testing is required, right? Why performance testing is required. Then I'll take you through some common terminologies in performance testing. Now, the reason being for performance testing is the first point is speed. As I was telling you, nowadays the users are very impatient, right? The users are very impatient. They cannot wait for any application to load. So the speed matters the most nowadays. So that is why we want to verify the speed of the application. Understood? Then comes this scalability. Now, for example, my application is very speed. The response time is very less. Okay, it is responding very fast. Now, it is responding very fast for a particular number of users. Now, we as an end user is using one application. For us, it is just an application. But for the application owner, the company to which that particular application belongs to, for them it is a business. It is a business, and no businessman in this world would like to have restricted number of users or a fixed number of users. Everyone will always try to increase their customer footprint, increase the number of users. So if my application is good enough for a particular number of users, I want to verify how that application is behaving for additional number of users. Over there, the point comes for scalability. So I am verifying whether my application is scalable or not. Okay, scalability. Scalable, it means if the application can support additional volumetric or not. That volumetric can be the number of users. That volumetric can be the data load, right? The volume of data. Anything which puts the system under more stress, that will come under the scalability. So we are also verifying the scalability. Then the third point which I say is normally one moment. What happened? I think I lost the connection to the machine. Give me a moment, let me fix it. One moment, guys. I'm trying to fix the issue. Okay, so the next point what I'm trying to say is that we need to have reliability, that my application could be very fast, my application could be scalable, but is that, you know, going to support for the longer duration of time? I can see a hand raised, so if you can unmute
Yeah,
yourself and if there is any.
are you sharing your screen because I can't
Yeah,
see.
actually I was not able to connect to the machine, so in the meantime it is getting connected, so
Okay.
I was trying to explain that. So basically that is the third point. So so let me, actually that machine I lost the connection, maybe some network issues, so let me share the another PPT. Okay, so what I was trying to say is the 3 points which matter the most to us is speed, scalability, and then reliability. Now reliability means, now my application is having good speed, okay, it is able to support a particular number of users, then I add more number of users to the system, it is scalable. Now if it is only having good speed, if it is scalable for only 2 hours or 3 hours, that is not going to serve my purpose, because my application will be used for 24 cross 7. So my application needs to be reliable also. These are the 3 points. Okay, these are the 3 most important points which we verify during performance testing: the speed, the scalability, and the reliability. Okay, so that is about our performance testing. So now we will go to the different phases of performance testing life cycle. Okay, there are 5 different phases, guys. There are 5 different phases: requirement gathering, test plan and design, test execution, test result collation, and test reporting. So first we are going to do or discuss about requirement gathering. So any queries from anyone? Why do we need performance testing? Are all of you clear why we need performance testing? If you have any queries, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. So coming to the first phase of performance testing, that is my requirement gathering. What is requirement gathering, guys? As I was telling you, for functional testing, they will gather the functional requirements. Means what is the requirement from a functionality point of view. But from a non-functional point of view, what should be our requirements, or what is the requirement from the customer side? So in requirement gathering, what you are going to basically do is you need to understand the application. Now the application which will be undergoing performance testing, right? We are going to do the performance testing of an application. Now if we do not understand the application, how that application is behaving, we will not be able to determine how can we do the best possible performance testing for it. So we need application understanding. It does not mean that you have to understand the functionality like a functional tester. Now they will have to understand from a negative scenario point of view, from a positive scenario point of view, the boundary value scenarios they have to think of. But for us, we need to understand the functionality for happy path or for positive scenario. Why, guys? The main objective of performance testing is to simulate or mimic the production behavior. Okay, the main objective of performance testing is to simulate the production behavior. Means in production how the application is going to be used, right? In production how the application is going to be used. Now when do you think, or you can also relate to that, whenever you are using the application in production, are you checking by providing any negative values? Anyone, just think upon it. Whenever you are using any application in production, are you providing any negative values, or means are you using the application the way it should be used, or you are trying to deviate from the normal process and trying to use? No, right? We will always use the application the way it is supposed to be used, or basically the positive scenario we are trying to do. Clear, all of you? Agree with
One
me? We are
question.
always trying to do the positive scenario. Yeah, I think there is a query.
Yes, so I just wanted to know, so there are no negative scenarios in performance testing.
Sorry, can you please come again? Can you please be a bit louder?
Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to understand, is there no negative scenarios in performance testing?
Yeah, in performance testing, we do not test negative scenarios. We do not do the performance testing of negative scenarios.
Okay.
Any other queries, anyone?
Meaning there can be negative scenario, but we do not take the approach of negative scenarios, right?
Yeah, in any application, in any web application, there can be negative scenarios, there can be positive scenarios, but we do not take negative scenarios into consideration. The negative flow, the negative, for example, you are filling a form for any examination. You will give, let's say, first name, last name. Okay, now in first name it is expecting characters. Okay, but as part of negative scenario, what will you do? You will provide integers, for example, in place of first name, and check whether it is accepting integers or not. That is a negative scenario. But as an end user in production, are you ever going to provide numbers for your first name or last name? No, right? No user will do that. Now if no user is going to do that in production, what is the need of creating scripts for such scenarios and doing the testing as part of performance testing? There is no need. Are you getting me? There is no need. Clear, all of you? I gave one example why we do not need to do negative testing. Clear? Next. So what I was telling is, you don't need to understand in details about the application, but whatever functionalities are there from a positive scenario point of view, you need to understand the application, how the components are interacting with each other. There could be multiple components in the application. How those components are interacting with each other, you need to understand that. How the logs are getting captured. Okay, how the logs are getting captured, and if there is any process running in the background, how much means, is there any uh, place like any in the database or in the log file where the timings are getting captured. Okay, those all kind of things which are related to performance testing, you will try to find out those from the application. So we are going to understand the application. Okay, we are going to understand the application. Now you have understood the application. Then you have to identify the scope for performance testing. Okay, you have to identify the scope for performance testing. Now in any application you have used, okay, in any web application which you have used, do you think, okay, do you think all the functionalities whatever is present in the application needs to be performance tested? Anyone?
No.
Whatever are the scenarios in an application, do you think all the scenarios should be performance tested? Not really. Not really. I'll give you an example. You are using, for example, a flight booking application. Okay, in the flight booking application, majority of the users, most of the users will search for flights and book their flights or reschedule their flights or cancel their flights, right? But in that application there will also be the functionality to change your password, to update your profile, contact us details. There would be other functionalities also, right? Similarly, in an e-commerce application also, you will have different functionalities, but majority of the users will search for products and try to purchase those products. Clear, all of you? Now in an application there could be multiple functionalities, but every functionality did not be performance tested, need not be performance tested, because the volume of users or the volumetric basically for those functions, for those scenarios would be very less, would be negligible in comparison to the volumetric or to the volume which would be using the other scenarios. Now, if any functionality, if any module is not going to be used in production at all, there is no point in including that in your performance testing. Clear all of you? That is why it is very important that you identify your scope. Now, how will you identify your scope? How will you? Now, I told you that you have to identify your scope, right? But how are you going to do that? It is also important. How are you going to do that? Okay. For that, we need to know which all scenarios, in the application are going to be the PT candidates or performance test candidates. Interview question, guys. Interview questions. Which scenarios? How will you identify which scenarios will be in scope of your performance testing? Okay. How will you identify which all scenarios will be in scope of your performance testing? Very, very important. Now your answer should be, first point, the frequently used scenarios or the frequently used modules should be the performance test candidate. Now what is the frequently used? As I was telling you, the functionalities which are used by major number of users, most number of users, that is frequently used, right? In an e-commerce application, you all would have used different e-commerce applications. Can you all tell me what is the functionality which you do the most, or what do you think?
Login,
Which?
logout.
Login and logout. Okay, any other answers?
Browsing the products.
Can you please be a bit louder?
Browsing the products.
Browsing the products. That is the perfect answer. Login, logout, you log in once only, and most probably if you are using any mobile application, you log in once, then you do not log in also, right? You simply are able to access the application. Browsing the products is the correct answer. Most of the time people will go use the application and search for products only, right? So that is a major functionality which is used by most number of users. So that is why I will tell that as a frequently used transaction, frequently used scenario. So do you all understand what is a frequently used now? The functionality in the application under scope, okay, which is going to be used by most number of users, is called as frequently used scenario or transaction. Now, mission critical. Mission critical. What is mission critical transaction means? In your application, whichever functionality is very, very important, it might sometime be used by average, means the number of users using that module may not be the most frequent one, but it is the most important one. Frequently means very popularly used. Mission critical means that transaction is very important, very critical for the application. For example, same I'll take e-commerce application. Nowadays the payments can be done through different methods in India at least, right? Now what do you think, which is the most common method of payment nowadays?
UPI.
UPI. See, you all are now, experienced about the functionalities of the different applications. You have to see now how you are guessing these answers, because you are using the applications as an end user. You are thinking as an end user. That is what is most required in performance testing, guys. Whenever you are going to design your scenarios, whenever you are going to finalize your scope, you have to think as an end user. Which scenario I am going to use most? Then coming to the mission critical, you all rightly guessed, in the different payment options available, nowadays people use the UPI payment option as the most preferred one. Now just think, in an application there is payment options. Okay, there is payment options. Cash on delivery is available, payment through cards is available, payment through internet banking is available, payment through UPI is available. Now if you say, okay, I would only test payment through cards and payment through internet banking, it is fine if I do not test or I do not include payment through UPI in my performance test. Is that the correct approach? No, that is not the correct approach. Why? Because payment through UPI is very important, because most of the users are using it, and if UPI payment is not happening, people will think that this is a useless application. This is a useless application. As I told you, people are very impatient. No one has that time to enter the card details or log in into their internet banking and make the payment. UPI payment option is mission critical for an e-commerce application or any application where you are purchasing products, booking tickets, whatever. Right? That is why, guys, the most important criteria is frequently used and mission critical. Now, you will find challenges that when you are asking the customer that tell me which is frequent, which is going to be frequently used, or which one is a mission critical, they might not understand. Why? Because you see, everyone is not capable of performance testing, right? People are laymen also. So in that case, you have to educate the customer. You have to make the customer understand that in performance testing, what, you know, in performance testing, what are we going to actually target? What is our objective? You have to make the customer understand. You have to make the customer understand. So based on this criteria, you are going to identify what should be the scope of your performance testing. Okay, any queries anyone till now?
So most of the time, this scope identification is done by customer, or it's a joint efforts.
It depends. If the customer is very much, mature on performance testing, okay, if the customer is mature on performance testing, these will mostly be provided by the customer. But sometimes, let's say you are engaging with a customer for the first time and they also have not done much of performance testing, so in that case that will be a joint exercise. You have to discuss with the customer, so that will also give you an opportunity to build that relationship with the customer. The more you engage with the customer, the more you engage with the stakeholders, it will provide you that platform, okay, to have that relationship built with them. Understood? So this is how you can do the scope identification. Okay. Next, finalized and approved NFRs. Very, very important, guys. Finalized and approved NFRs. Now, what is an NFR? NFR is a non-functional requirement. Okay. NFR means non-functional requirement. Means on the basis of those requirements, you are going to do your test. On the basis of those requirements, you are going to basically design your test approach. Clear, all of you? So now again here the question will be, are we going to get the NFRs from the customer? The answer is yes. We as per the industry standard, as per the best practice, you are supposed to get the non-functional requirement from the customer. Understood everyone? Now, as a performance testing team, you are going to interact with different stakeholders in your project. Okay, as a performance testing team, you are going to interact with multiple stakeholders in your project. The most important stakeholder, means for NFRs at least, you will discuss with business analyst. Please remember these roles, guys. I'll tell you also during the NFRs discussion. I'll tell you the most important stakeholder with whom you will discuss frequently is business analyst. The responsibility of the business analyst is to document the non-functional requirements and provide to the team, provide to the NFT team. Okay, the responsibility lies with the business analyst to document the NFRs and provide it to the NFT team. But as I was telling you, if the customer is not mature, they will not be in a position to document the NFRs for you. Okay, they will not be in a position to document the NFRs for you. So what will you do? Now coming to the next interview question. Coming to the next interview question. So before going to that interview question, I would like to say, like, what are the information you will look for in the non-functional requirement? Now in non-functional requirement, you will have the requirement for performance testing, you will have the requirement for site reliability testing, you will have the requirement for security testing, you will have the requirement for browser compatibility testing, you might have the requirement for accessibility testing. Understood? But why, before that, why will you have the requirements for all of them, guys? Because all these testing types are coming under non-functional testing, so you will have the requirement, all the requirements under NFRs. You have to identify which are the performance testing NFRs. Okay, you have to identify which are the performance testing NFRs. Now coming to the interview question, how will you find out, okay, or how will you find out the volume for your performance testing for an application which is completely new, it has not gone to production? That is one question. How will you find out the volumetric for any application which is already in production and the customer is not able to provide the NFRs to you? Okay, understood both the questions, guys? Who didn't understand? Who didn't understand the questions? One question is, how will you determine the volume for your application which is completely new? It has not gone to production. How will you find out that? That is one question. Next question is, how will you find out the volume of the application, okay, with which it needs to be tested if it is already in production but the customer is not aware that what all NFRs they should give to you? How are you going to tackle this situation? That will be the interview question, guys. Okay. Now, first of all, let me tell you, for an existing application, what should be your approach? If the application is already existing, you should ideally what you do is you should analyze the production logs. Okay, you should analyze the production logs. Once you analyze the production logs, analyze the production logs for 1 year or 2 year. Okay, you analyze the production logs for 1 year or 2 year, and then you will be able to know the pattern throughout the year, right? Throughout the year, what was the volumetric which was using the application, that you will come to know. Are all of you clear? That you will come to know. So you will analyze the production logs in order to find out the volumetric for production. Understood everyone? For production. Any queries till now?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, please tell me.
Okay, so these production logs, how can, like, as the performance tester, how can I check into these production logs?
Yes, very good question. Here it comes another stakeholder with which you will communicate is your support team. Support team means whoever is your production support engineer. Production support engineer, you take the necessary approvals from your project manager, get in touch with them, and then what you do, you try to get the production logs from them. So you will get in touch with the support team of your project. Understood? Who is managing the production environments. Clear? Whoever is
Okay,
managing the production environments, from them you will get the production logs.
okay, and the timeline that you have defined, 1 to 2 years, is it like uh, it's
One
like
year,
a
2 years should be fine. Yeah, tell me.
okay, yeah. I just wanted to check on the timeline. It's like 1 year or 2 year, or can be anything, any number.
1 year, minimum 1 year, so that you get to know the pattern for all the 12 months. Throughout which month, what was the volume and all, you will get to know. So if you take, see, performance testing is also about statistics. If you have more samples, if you have more data samples, you can do the analysis better, right? So that is why now you see the exit polls, whatever exit polls related to elections they come up with. If the sample size is more, the exit polls will be able to predict it in a more better way, right? Similarly, if you have the production logs for a longer duration of time, you will be able to analyze them better and you will be able to know the volumetric accordingly. Understood? Okay, so then for a new application, existing application, all of you understood, I hope. Then coming to a new application which has never gone to production. In that case, you have to discuss with your business analyst. Now, the business analyst will tell you, I am telling you the real picture, guys. The business analyst will tell you that I am not very much sure what should be the volumetric and all. In that case, you tell your business analyst that he should discuss with the business users. Business users means who are basically very close to the business. They understand the functionality the best from anyone else. They have close eye on the business. So business users to, to discuss with the business users and come up with the answers. Okay. Also, now whatever volumetric the business user will say, you cannot test with that because you do not know whatever infrastructure design is in place, if that is going to support those many users or not, or that much of volume or not, right? So in order to do that, you need to also discuss with your solution architect, you need to discuss with your development team that this is the volumetric, is my application going to cope with it, or is my application going to meet that requirement or not? Understood everyone? So you have to discuss with business users, you have to discuss with solution architect, you have to discuss with development team in order to find out the volumetric for a new application. What is the expected volumetric, or what is the volumetric with which you should test? Understood everyone? So new application, existing application. Then the information which you will look for in the NFRC is basically what is the volume with which you should test the application, or what is the average volume, what is the peak volume they are expecting. Volume means always the average volume, and the peak volume you have to find out. average volume, peak volume. Clear all of you? Then TPS, transactions per second. How many transactions per second are they expecting to be completed? How many transactions per second are they expecting to be completed? Then what is the response time expectation? What is the response time expectation? Within how much of time they want the response time to stay within, or within how much of time the different pages of the web application should load? That is your response time. Clear all of you? Then with that information you also need to know about your infrastructure. What should be the CPU utilization like? What should be the memory utilization look like? Okay, so once you got NFRs, that will not be the finalized version, guys. The NFRs which you will get in the beginning, that will not be the finalized version, because whatever you have got, you have to verify, right, whether they are complete or not. You have to verify whether those NFRs are complete or not. So for that, you will do the static testing of NFRs. Now I am introducing one new term known as static testing. Whoever has knowledge on testing, you all might have understood that static testing is review. Static testing is review or analysis basically. So once you get the NFRs, you analyze those NFRs, whatever information you need, if all the information is present in those NFRs or not. Whatever information you need, if those information is present in the NFRs or not. If any information is missing, okay, if any information is missing, you go back to the business analyst, raise the queries and tell them that these are the gaps which we have observed. These are the gaps which we have observed. Now during our training, I will be providing you a list of NFRs. That will be the initial draft. Then we will do the static testing of those NFRs. Once we do the static testing of those NFRs, we will fill up a static testing template. We will send it to the business analyst and get it reviewed. Then once the business analyst comes back with the resolution to your queries, you will again check that whatever information you are looking for in the NFRs, are they now present or not? Are they now present or not? So once you are satisfied with the non-functional requirements, once you are satisfied with the non-functional requirements for performance testing, at least also you have identified that your scope is finalized, then you ask for the finalized scope and finalized NFRs. It means you will ask approval, sign off. You will ask sign off. You will ask approval on the non-functional requirements and on the scope which is determined for performance system. Any queries, anyone?
One question here. So this static testing of NFRs includes the metrics,
The
the
metrics,
expected.
the
Yep.
KPIs for performance testing, right?
Uh, so the static testing is nothing but all the metrics that should
No,
be in the
static testing
expected.
is no static testing means you will analyze those NFRs if those requirements contain the information, the metrics to be measured. Whatever metrics you want to measure and how much is the expected value, if those metrics are present or not in those NFRs, you are going to analyze the NFRs, and that process is known as static testing. For example, volumetric. I need to have average load as well as peak load. If they give, let's say, my application should be accessible to 1000 users. Only one number someone specified. How do I know that 1000 users is the average load or the peak load? Right? So I can only get to know that if I raise a query on that. If I raise a query on that. Clear all of you? Similarly, we will have to analyze the different NFRs and see that whatever information we are looking for, that is complete or not in that. Understood? So this is how you do the static testing and look for the approved NFRs and approved scope. Any other queries, anyone?
Is it a good idea to always test with peak user load? Because in my earlier project we used to always test with the peak user load because anyways it will cover the
You will
average
have
user
to
load as
you
well.
will have to you will have to do the test with average load as well as peak load. Now if you do not do the test with average load, you directly went to the peak load, you got some failures. So you have to tell some number to the customer that with how much of load it is compatible, right? So first of all, you should always test with the average load, that yes, this is the load with which the application is working correctly or not. Then you go to the peak load. So normally you will do your load test with your average load or the load which is expected over the time. Means any application when it is going to be used, there could be some days when there will be so many users, right? For example, any sale, right? Any sale is there. So you will in e-commerce application you will have so many users footprint on that day, or any application which is going to be used after 2 years, for example. Means today the application is live, after 2 years what is the volume which is going to use that application? That is also one consideration for your peak volume, right? So it depends what is your requirement. Based on that requirement you will decide with which load you should test your application. Okay.
Okay, I got it. And are
Yeah,
we going to cover volume testing as well in this course?
we are going to cover load test, stress test.
uh, these two types only?
Volume, see, volume test is related to database testing. Now, stress test is also one kind
Correct.
of volume test, right? So once you get to know the flavor, I'll explain you like what are the different types of tests. We'll come to test execution. Okay. So the only thing is in volume test you will have a more amount of test data. Okay, you are going to put.
Yes,
Now
we keep
volume,
on
see when you say
populating more users.
volume, volume can see when you say volume, volume can be from a user point of view, volume can be from a data point of view. Now from a user point of view, stress test, whatever you are going to do, that is your volume. Understood? So definition of volume means which data you are referring to, whether it is users, whether it is actually the low amount of data which will be injected into the system, those are things.
Yes, I'm talking about database only.
No,
Like
so
data
database,
injected into
no,
the system.
so database testing will not means volume testing for database will not be in scope of this. But I means I can explain you what will be the approach. But yes, that will not
Yeah.
be means they're not going to demonstrate that.
Okay. Yep. That will be helpful.
Yeah. Any other queries,
Uh,
anyone?
sir,
Yeah, yeah.
namaskar, sir. One question is from my end. I do have an interview on tomorrow.
Sorry, your voice is breaking.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have an interview on tomorrow. Actually, I do have 9 years of experience into manual testing, and though rare of call is happening for manual testing, I switch into uh, performance testing. And thing is that, sir, I wanted to means everybody asked me the same kind of question. What are the scenario we are facing? Means like kind of bottlenecks. if you can
Yes.
suggest me what I will explain, then it will be very much fruitful full for me, sir, on tomorrow.
Yeah, you ping in the group. I'll reply one to one to you. Okay. So we
Thank
will
you,
take it
thank you,
outside of
thank
this call because uh, that will come later in our training. Okay.
thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. So this is our static testing. Then your scope is identified. What you have to do as part of your performance test. Then your NFRs are also finalized. You have to place now. How where will you do the testing? You will do the testing in your performance test environment, right? So you need to place a request with the environment team to create a performance test environment for you. And what should be that environment like? That environment should be close to production. Why? Because we are mimicking production behavior. Now, if they give you a low scale environment, but you are doing the test with the volume which is expected in production, then that low scale environment is not going to support those many users. You will get higher response times, you will get errors which will not give you the correct picture about performance. You cannot go to the customer with those results, right? Because our objective is to find out how the application is going to behave in production. So we also need one environment which will be close to production. So you place a request with the test environment team during this requirement gathering that they need to provide a environment for performance testing, and that should be close to production. Close to production means your environment should not be besides the production environment. Rather, the hardware specification should be similar to your production environment. The configuration, the hardware, okay, those all things should be similar to your production environment. They should not be neighbors. Okay, close to production does not mean that they should be neighbors. Okay, the hardware configuration, the hardware specification, all those things should be similar to production. Now these are all good things, guys, right? But as you know, no project runs very smooth. We always have challenges, right? So in requirement gathering phase also you will find some challenges. First challenge is that you will, most of the times it is a challenge to get the proper NFRs. Once you get the NFRs, it is again a challenge to get them approved. Okay, but it is your responsibility, it is your duty to follow with the stakeholders and take the approval on the NFRs. Because if the NFRs are not approved and tomorrow they again change the NFRs, whatever efforts you would have given for the initial version of the NFRs, that will get wasted. Then test environment availability. Most of the times they fail to provide one environment for performance testing, a separate environment for performance testing, or they might not be able to provide the environment which is close to production. Okay, so these are the challenges also which you face during your requirement gathering phase. Okay, so with this we come to the end of requirement gathering. Any queries, anyone? Like, what all things you will do as part of requirement gathering?
I have faced the second challenge in my previous project.
Definitely,
So it was
yes.
bit struggle initially. So are you going to cover this as well, like in the course?
Yeah, what should you, how should you deal with that? Okay, all those
Yes, yes,
things I'll
approach.
tell you.
Yeah,
Yes.
approach
Yeah.
basically, and like
Yes,
yeah,
approach.
next
As I
steps.
told you, see, I'm going to give you the flavor of a real-time project. Otherwise, what is the point of bringing the challenges here, right? But I know what are the challenges. You will get familiar how a performance testing project works. Clear, all of you? With this,
Uh,
we will. Yeah, tell me,
Chandra,
please.
I have a query. I wanted to ask if for the performance testing, do we need normal application, mobile application builds, or do we need to do some like? or we need to ask for some special builds from developer?
Whatever version, I'll tell you, like, means it is not that only mobile application will be performance tested. It could be web application, it could be mobile application, it could be API, anything. Whatever project you are into, whatever application is going to go live, that application you have to do the performance testing. But what
Okay,
should be
so
the
there
entry
is.
criteria based on what are conditions you should accept on application for performance testing? We are going to see that in details later.
Okay, so there is
Okay.
no special ask from mobile application side, like for Android and iOS, there is no special ask to provide such kind of builds for performance testing, right?
Now, if your project involves mobile application, you have to get mobile application builds, right? But if your
Hmm.
application is a web application, there is no point, because if any web application doesn't have a mobile application version, how can you do that performance testing, right?
No,
Whatever
that is
project
right.
you are into, whatever
My.
project you are into,
Mhm.
and that project will go into production, right? So whatever application is going to go into production, that you have to test as part of performance testing.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you all for joining the session today. Hope you all enjoyed the session today. Thank you all for joining. Bye for now.